Hello everybody and welcome to the 2.25 mile circuit that is the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Since 1962, this circuit has been challenging some of the best drivers in the world. IMSA are back here this weekend for the first time since 2012. An overcast sky, slightly threatening but dry at the moment as we're getting ready for the first of two races this weekend for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series. We're live on RS2 IMSA Radio, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels, and with IMSA.tv as well. So wherever you are in the world or here at the track listening on 90.3 FM, a very warm welcome as we say, drivers, start your Lamborghini engines. Sitting alongside me, our guest commentator, Brian Sellers from Paul Miller Racing. He'll be talking us through some of the finer points of these cars and racing in the next 50 minutes or so. And slightly further over to my right, Jeremy Shaw, who has the grid for this first of the two races here at Mid-Ohio.
This is the first race of the championship this season. There'll be two races this weekend. There'll be 17 cars taking the start. Let's start from the back, and there's four categories, but just all running the same car. The new Lamborghini Huracan Evo, an evolution of the car that's been raced for the last couple of years. But four categories of drivers, basically based on experience. There's pro drivers, there's Pro-Am, there's Am, and there's LB Cup for drivers just starting out their racing careers. Start from the back, who get in 17th position. Randy Sellery will start the Wayne Taylor Racing car number 10. And on the 8th row is Ben Albano for P1 Motorsports in car number 77, and Jonathan George for car number 5, also for P1 Motorsports. Row 7 of the grid, Sheena Monk is one of the LB Cup contenders for Wayne Taylor Racing. Alongside her is another female, Shay Holbrook, in car number 67. She's running in Am for PPM. Row 6 of the grid, Cameron Castles, another Am contender for Wayne Taylor Racing in car number 33. And Paris Mullins will start the LB Cup pole-winning car, effectively, car number 88 for US Racetronics. Paris Mullins' teammate Brian Thienes is running in the Am category. In car number 17 will start for the 10th position alongside Dylan Murcott in the number 47. That's a Pro-Am entry for PPM. Row 4 of the grid, Damon Oakey is the Am contender for US Racetronics in car number 09, making his return to the series after a year away. Alongside him, Shinya Machimi, also returning to the series from 1 year away. He was a pro champion 2 years ago. He would drive for PPM in car number 46. In the 6th position on the grid, last year's 2nd position in LB Cup, moving up to Am category this year in car number 2 for Dream Racing Motorsport from Atlanta is Ryan Hardwick. And alongside him, making a very impressive debut in this championship, Carol Baz from Poland in car number 79 for P1 Motorsports. Rows 2 of the grid, Eduardo Piscopo will start car number 50 for US Racetronics. These are all pro contenders now for these next 3 positions. Madison Snow in car number 29 for Change Racing. And onto the front row of the grid, Trent Hinman in the defending series champion for Wayne Taylor Racing in car number 1. But on pole position is the Pro-Am entry of Loris Spinelli in car number 71 for P1 Motorsports. Loris Spinelli, who will share that car with JC Perez. They've already won a Lamborghini Super Trofeo event this season. How, you say, because this is the first round in North America? Well, they won one of the races, the first round of the European Championship at Monza a few weeks ago. So Loris Spinelli in car number 71 from Italy will start on the pole position. John.
These cars look absolutely brilliant. The Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo, the new body kit for 2018, a bit more downforce, a little more power produced as well. Brian is alongside us, Brian Sellers. Your teammate Madison Snow is having a drive. How come you're not having a play at these then?
They gave me the option of being here with you or on track, so I chose up here. It's a better view. You're
such a charmer. You really are. Quite tough cars to drive here, particularly for inexperienced drivers.
They are, and I think that was one of their goals with the new Evo kit, was to help make that a little bit easier, and the feedback I've got from the drivers so far is that it's been very successful.
Well, the cars are lining up side by side. An unusual start here. The We've already started the race, effectively. We're under full course yellow. How does that work? The safety car's in the pit lane because the green flag is shown halfway down the back straight between turns 2, 3 and 4. The pole man then, Spinelli, sitting on the inside in that green Lamborghini, just easing in to Trent Hinman, and Trent won't be taking too much of that, I'll tell you. The safety car has gone, so it is the 71 green car on the left of our picture. Driver's right coming down. Hinman slightly ahead of him, and now he hits the go pedal. That's not the cleanest of starts. Will it be waved off? It is a green flag in the air, so we are racing and coming through from further back. Madison Snow and Eduardo Piscopo coming through, but Spinelli there playing the part of the safety car and slowing everyone down. And I'm hearing already from race control, Jeremy, the start is under review.
Well, so it should be, because the drivers are told very clearly in the drivers' meeting that you have to maintain safety car speed before the green flag. That he clearly did not do. He just, and then you're supposed to accelerate initially smoothly, not just jump on the throttle like he did there and steal a march on the rest of the field. It's kind of European racing, that, but that's not the way it's done over here. And the rules are very specific, Brian Sellers.
And it is a very difficult place to start a race, seeing as the start finish is actually in a different place. However, you are given strict instructions on what to do, and you saw games played early, so maybe Loris was ready to go and you know, took too much of advantage of that situation.
We'll let you know immediately we have the answer. The first lap is in the books. Of course, it's only really 3/4 of a green flag lap. Coming to the line here, Brian, Loris on the pole position. Actually, Trent's ahead at this point because Loris is going so slowly.
Yeah, you can see Loris just, he doesn't accelerate gradually, as Jeremy said. It's a quick takeoff, and unfortunately it catches Trent out, but you should be a long gradual acceleration to give the field a chance to stay bunched up and leave together.
I gave Madison Snow, who was in behind the pole man. I think Madison had an idea of what was going to happen and got on the loud pedal quite early. Gave him the advantage down into turn 4 in second place. Eduardo Piscopo pulled out to his right as well and came down the inside. He's in 4th position now.
The start has been reviewed and no action there from race
I think
control.
he's lucky.
Yeah, very, very lucky. I mean, why therefore have the meeting in the first place? But anyhow, that has been the call, and Loris Spinelli has a really good lead out in front, and he will intend to maintain that advantage or even extend it.
And I think from what we've seen in qualifying, he has the ability to open a gap right now.
Yeah.
So in some ways, you look back at the start and say, was that a risk that was really necessary, knowing you have a car that was fast enough? But, you know, these guys are trying in a sprint race to open gaps and be as fast as they can, as long as they can.
Yeah, and if that, I mean, if the start had been waved off, they would have just come round and restarted, but it was given the green flag, and the chance that Spinelli was taking there, or Spinelli was possibly getting penalised and having to come down through the pit lane, and that would have been a real disadvantage. That hasn't happened, so let's forget about it. 46 minutes still to run, and Madison Snow in second position in that number 29 car, which is linked. All of these cars are linked with dealers around the country, and it's the Lamborghini of the Carolinas dealer that supports Madison Snow. Corey Lewis will be getting into that Change Racing Lamborghini once the pit lane window opens. It's a 10-minute window in the middle of the race, mandatory pit stop, and it's a mandatory pit stop time as well, so you don't have to rush. And that, Brian, is because there's drivers in here who aren't pros, and you don't want to be trying to get out with belts all over the place and that sort. That's for safety, and I completely agree with that at this level of racing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's a time and a place to have fast driver changes, and this probably isn't the one. You want the guys to be able to be calm, cool, relaxed, and have everything done by the time they get in there. And it's still fast enough that it's not easy to get done.
Well, these cars are quick. These are as quick, if not quicker, than your GT Daytona car, pulling through the trap speed, certainly 163, 164 miles an hour. That's very quick indeed.
It's extremely fast, and I think the whole thing about the Lamborghini program is moving you from the ST car into the GT3 car. And a lot of these guys I've actually run with in the GT3 car, and let me tell you, if they can drive the ST car fast, they come into the GT car and exactly the same thing. These
cars developed from the road-going Lamborghini Huracan. 2-wheel drive, gone are the days of the 4-wheel drive Super Trofeo cars. That was changed quite some time ago. Originally with 620 horsepower, the engines breathe a little better now because of the periscope ram air effect that this new body kit has added. 2 cars into the pits early, 77, it's Benambano, and also the number 5 car as well in the pit lane, Jonathan George, for their teams, and they will go back into the pit lane. This was expected, Jeremy.
Yeah, it was, yes.
Some of these cars not going to be running the full race. That's effectively a start and park situation.
But Ben Albano in that car number 77, he's come up through the ranks. He's a youngster, raced from Greenwich, Connecticut. He's just 22 years of age, and he's been racing in the global battery tender global MX5 Cup Series quite successfully, in the Skip Barber's Championship before that did quite a lot of success there. Also been racing radical sports cars recently, and I believe he is going to make his proper championship debut in the next round at Watkins Glen.
They need somebody to do that in the future, actually. You and I could do that, Jeremy, do a lap and then pull in. You know, it would be quiet for a while.
Odd job pulling us in.
Can't hear you on the radio. I'll stay out till it runs out of fuel. I think that's the thing to do there. Loris Spinetti pulling out a lead now, 2 seconds, and a 1:22.2 last time around is the fastest lap of the race. He's not hanging about. Well over 160 miles an hour for the second place driver Madison Snow through the speed trap. 164, let's call it. In fact, it is 164 this time around. That is hauling the mail. Then it's Trent Hinman in the number 1 Lamborghini, then Eduardo Piscopo, and then Karol Baz, the Polish driver. Not a lot known about Karol before he popped up in this, and we've done a bit of research on him, and he's got a decent pedigree behind him over in Europe, mostly doing karting. Quite a young driver, has been a works driver in karting and earned some money out of it. And you don't do that, Jeremy, if you're not any good.
No, that's right. I mean, he's 26 years of age, so he's stayed in karting quite a relatively long period of time for somebody who's clearly that good. But certainly he's impressed this team, and he also won one of the races in Europe in the first round of the European Championship in Monza. He won it, was running there in the pro category and won one of those races, so he's already a race winner in these Lamborghini Huracan Evos.
He's also done some Italian, I think he's done some Italian GT Championship. There's a number of the guys coming into this house, and this is really the whole idea of Super Trofeo, Brian Sellers, is to actually I might have him confused with one of the other guys, but the idea is that you are getting experience of running longer distance races in very powerful motor cars.
Yeah, that's right. And I actually think that he is a perfect example. I spoke with the team a little bit earlier today, and if I'm not mistaken, he started karting actually quite a bit later than most.
Correct.
And worked his way into a Tony Kart factory driver, was a world champion as early as last year, and now has done some GT Masters, and and now has worked his way into this. And so this is a stepping stone to try and get to the next place.
Spinelli pulls out another 3/10 with another fastest lap down to a 22 flat. Madison Snow leads the pro category, but second only to that 71 car. One or two little detailed changes this year, Jeremy's, as far as the driver lineups and the categories are concerned. We do have some singleton drivers here, but there are classes now where you must have 2 drivers for the 2018 series.
Yeah, that's right. The Pro and the Pro-Am, you have to run 2 drivers in those cars. So there'll be 2 races this weekend. We had 2 qualifying periods this morning, each of 15 minutes. And for each of the races, one driver will qualify and start that race, and the other qualifying session and race will be the driver B, let's say. So the driver A then will finish the race tomorrow.
Very, very powerful cars, and requiring a little bit of finesse, Brian Sellers, on the right pedal. And we see these cars squirming around. They're heavy, albeit the Pirelli tyres are pretty new, but they're heavy, and they're going to take a bit of driving at this time of the race.
And you can, and this is like my favorite part of the race to watch, guys, because you can see they focused a lot on the battle between Trent and Madison right now, and you can see the car differences between the two as the tires start to wear and how the drivers are adapting to it. And you can see both those cars starting to struggle a little bit on the entry to the corners and a little bit with traction. So it'd be neat to watch how this starts to unfold and how they can manage the tires and the meat part of the race.
Not a lot that you can do. It's a spec series, so you can't develop the car. It is based on a street car rather than a GT car, so there's a little more compliance, but obviously quite a lot of safety equipment that has to go in here. But there are detailed changes, tyre pressures, you can do a little bit with the suspension. So I guess, like most spec races of this length particularly, you have a decision to make whether you set the car up to be really good when it's heavy on new Pirellis, or better when the Pirellis are worn but the car is lighter.
I think in my personal opinion, the best way is always the long-term solution. It's
Spinner out on the circuit, and it is the number 7 that's gone around, and that is the LB Cup runner. That's Sheena Monk for Wayne Taylor Racing, supported by the Paramus dealer. Not the first person ever to have lost it, going up over the top at 9, and won't be the last, not even this weekend. A fearsome part of the circuit, Brian.
Yeah, it's difficult, and this plays exactly into what we were just talking about with experience and with tire wear, and as the race starts to progress. I would say just by looking at what we saw there, the tire's starting to wear and the traction wasn't as good as what it was early in the race. And as you come over the rise, that's one of the places where tire degradation plays a massive part. You just don't have the grip to hold the car to the track, and maybe just a little bit too heavy on the throttle. Meantime,
at the front of the field, Jeremy, another good lap from Madison Snow, and that lead, which was out over 2 seconds, now down to 1.5 seconds. As Sheena Monk did just lose, I'm guessing, a little bit too much curb on turn 8 on the inside, but did a good job of getting the car stopped without hitting anything as she went over the top of 9, and that actually isn't as easy as it sounds there. Back at the front, it's down to 1.5 seconds, Jeremy, between Spinelli and Snow.
Yeah, it's a good battle between those two. They're matching lap times last time, and Trent Hinmans is staying right there as well. In fact, Trent was slightly quicker on that last lap, and actually slightly quicker than him also was Eduardo Piscopo in 4th position. And also turning some good laps is now Shinya Michimi, having found a way past Ryan Hardwick. Shinya Michimi making his return to racing after a pretty lengthy absence, turning some very good laps now in that car number 46 in 6th position.
Michimi, who was the champion 2 years ago in this series here in America, and in fact knows this part of the world very, very well indeed.
You can see the difference as you watch this battle between Madison and Trent, the strengths and the weaknesses on each portion of the track. You can really see Trent seems to be able to roll the corner speeds pretty well, but Madison seems to be able to get good exit shots, and you can see the cat and mouse game happening right now, and it looks like Trent's car is just maybe a little bit better if he can find a way around.
How much of that is driver, how much of that is set up on the cars? And again, very different, very tiny little differences in the setup.
I think from what I see right now, I think some of it is certainly set up, and I think you can see the drivers change their lines and their approaches as the race goes on. Like if you notice, if you watch right now, Madison is squaring the corners off a little bit more than what he was at the beginning of the race, and I suspect that's just because he doesn't have the grip that he did before, and he's just trying to make sure he can get exit shots so Trent can't get a run past him.
Top 4 all running up to the keyhole in the same bit, and Madison goes a little bit deep. Had the front brakes really glowing there as he missed his braking point by maybe a foot, maybe 18 inches. That's all it is there, and there's a change of surface there, Brian, and if you don't get your braking right, the car just pushes on. You get massive understeer there.
It's the best thing about Mid-Ohio is there's no room for error, and a foot one direction or a foot another direction makes a huge difference, and it's like what makes this place great.
It is, and particularly this weekend, because if you stray a wheel on the grass, you're going for a really scary ride because of all the rain we've had the last few days.
Yeah, and you know, that's actually an interesting point, aside from the grass, but these guys right now are racing on a track that is completely different to anything they've been on right now. I mean, they've been in damp conditions, dry conditions, but never on a track that's had a full day's worth of dry rubber and running. So right now, the cars can be reacting completely different to what they had planned.
I love the fact that you say, by the way, that that's what's great about Mid-Ohio is how hard it is to drive and to drive consistently. That proves that you're a driver who likes a challenge. A lot of people would say, oh, Mid-Ohio, it's really hard. I can't get it right. The other thing is, and explain why this is important, Pirelli are the 4th different tyre manufacturer to be on this circuit today, and that actually makes a huge difference as well.
It does make a huge difference. Each tyre manufacturer has a different rubber compound that they use, obviously, and they don't always coexist. And so a lot of times what you'll find is that after the Continental rubber, the Michelin rubber has all been laid down, that now the Pirelli off the Trofeo car is actually pulling that rubber back off and then laying its own rubber back down. So the line changes, how the car responds in different areas of the track changes, and it's something you can't Oh, good look up the inside for Trent there. Took my breath away. It's a tough place to pass, so when you get opportunities like that, you have to go for it. But it changes. The different rubbers change grip levels drastically.
The tyre people once sat down with me and started talking about not just mechanical grip but chemical grip, and at that point my eyes glazed over and I just couldn't take it in anymore. That was the voice of Brian Sellers, who's in the IMSA Broadcast Centre with us here. We're live from trackside at Mid-Ohio. IMSA Radio RS2, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels, and IMSA TV together. You could be watching on the IMSA app, the brand new IMSA app for this weekend. Get to your app store and search it, download it. It's absolutely free, loads of content on there, and included all of the development series and the Continental tyres and the qualifying for the WeatherTech series earlier today. All were live in sound and vision, and free is a great price, isn't it? I always think, and never asking for you for any money. 33.5 minutes still to go. Loris Spinelli leads in the 71 car and is pulling away from a quality field here. JC Perez still to get in the P1 Motorsports Browood dealer-sponsored machine. The Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo doing its job and doing it well. And the crowd has stayed on. This is the end of almost 11 hours of track action today, and the crowd wanted to see the Raging Bulls. They wanted to hear these Lamborghini V10 engines cracking the evening air here at Mid-Ohio, and they are getting plenty of entertainment.
Yeah, they do sound glorious, don't they? And they put on quite a show. I mean, these are spectacularly fast cars, as Trent Hindman there uses all of the road and a little bit more, Brian Sellers.
It looks, to me, it looks like Trent has the stronger car right now, and I know Madison's doing everything he can to hold him off, but you can just tell that Trent has a little bit over him, and right now he's thinking that this is for the pro lead. While it might not be overall, he knows if he can get his co-driver in position to chase down the car in front, that it could be for the overall victory.
That's exactly right. And also, as a former champion in this series, Trent Hindman, he's a champion in the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge. He won the Pro-Am category 2 years ago with Craig Jewison. He won the Pro Championship last year with Riccardo Agassini. So he knows how to win championships, and he knows you have to finish well every time out.
Into the keyhole, Madison now doing the line that I love. It doesn't look like it's the right line. It looks like he misses the first apex, the classic apex. But what he does is he takes a huge amount of speed in the middle of the corner and then takes a very late exit apex, which is why he's getting that run, that fast run down to the potential overtaking spot at turn 4, Brian. And that is smart driving by Madison.
It is, and especially given what you see right now. You can, if you pay attention, you'll notice he is not using all the road in portions like we were looking at just there in turn 5. And one of the reasons is because the traction has degraded so substantially in his car, and I think what he's trying to do is basically square the corner to get an exit shot.
Now behind him, Trent Hindman is trying really hard. When does Trent think to himself, I've got to stop this because I've got to give the car and the tyres to my teammate in a condition that he can fight in the second half of the race?
I think at the moment, Trent is actually okay on the tire. I don't see any big slides that he's doing to try and get around Madison. I think he's being aggressive, but I think he's still being smart in his tire usage right now. I don't think that he's overusing the rear, because if you notice, you see here, I mean, he's using all the road, but no big slides out of the rear, not too aggressive with the throttle. And so I think he is planning for the future.
Okay, we're getting into the pit stop window, and we'll see who decides to go early or late to do the driver change. There'll be no fueling or servicing on the car. It is purely a driver change situation. Spinelli will get out of the Pro-Am and the overall leader and give over to JC Perez.
Madison, here we go.
Oh, hello. Here's the battle for second place as Trent has a look round the outside, then the inside, then the outside again. He's got a car that sticks to the ground as they're coming through turn 9, and the slower car there probably just helped Madison a tiny little bit because they both had to modify their line to driver's right.
Well, that's right. It was Sheena Monk in that number 7 car being lapped there, and she initially held up Madison Snow just a little bit, but Trent Hindman unable to take advantage there. Brian Sellers, what's going through your mind? You're in Madison Snow's position. You probably know the guy behind you, Trent Hindman, is a little bit faster. What's going through your mind?
At this stage, all you're trying to do is like manage expectations. And what I mean by that is you're not trying to overdrive your race car. Madison is smart enough at this stage in his career and won enough races to understand that he can't over push in the areas he's weak to try and make up for it. It's just not going to happen. So what he has to do is focus on exit shots out of the keyhole, focus on exit shots out of the carousel. It'd be very difficult to pass someone of Madison's caliber in the 7-8 section where Trent keeps trying.
And he's actually deliberately not trying to get to the apex in some of these tighter corners now. It looks like he's driving untidily. There's not enough room for Hinman to get down the inside. There's not quite an Huracan's width there. And what that's doing, in NASCAR terms, centre off is what he is concentrating on at the moment. And if that means he has to go around a little less tightly, means he's taking a little more momentum and he's not scrubbing those front tyres, crucially. And what he's not doing is lighting up the rears either, although he just did over the top of 9, and for a moment he lost forward drive, and that has allowed Hinman just to close in a tiny little bit, but I don't think it's close enough. Pit window is open, by the way. We've had 3 or 4 drivers taking advantage of that, and Hinman is going to hit the pit lane. Yes, he is. And I think that's smart, because there's no point, Brian, in being stuck behind Madison any longer than he needs to be. He'll come in, hand over to Jonathan Cecotto, has proved himself very, very quick indeed, and they might just be able to get position by doing the pit stop a little bit earlier. Yeah,
it's a perfect call from their position. They feel like they have a strong race car, and there's no reason to continue to run laps behind there. If they can get the co-driver in, let him go out, run a few laps in clean traffic, and hopefully have a good lap time, and then jump that change racing car.
Already, Jonathan Cecotto in the car. Trent Hinman is out, just chilling out for a moment. A driver helper helping the new guy going in. And the only thing that's going on here is the checking of the Pirelli tyres. What's going on there, Brian?
Well, right now they're bleeding the tire pressures down. So what they'll do is, obviously, I think these conditions are different. It's warmer. The tire temperatures and pressures will be high. They'll bleed the pressures back down for the next driver, maybe doing a balance adjustment if necessary. Like, I would suspect that the Wayne Taylor guys probably have just bled down to optimal pressures, but I would assume that the change racing guys will make a balance change, maybe less rear tire pressure because they're struggling with the rear at the moment. It gives them an opportunity to tune the car in the middle of the race.
Time is up on the stopwatch, and out goes Jonathan Cecotto. Also having stopped the 88 of Paris Mullins, Mark Proto will take over that number 88 Luna-sponsored car. Just tightening or just checking the centre locks nuts as well. No tyre changes, so that's not anything to worry about there. As in comes the remainder of the field. Our leader, Loris Spinelli, staying out at the moment, as is Madison Snow. Now, Madison now, released from having to worry what's behind him, has got to put some really sharp laps in here, Brian.
He does, but you have to be careful when you're in, I would say, Spinelli and in Madison's situation, because what can happen is you start to catch traffic coming out of the pits. And so if you're the last car to make that stop and you get caught for 1 or 2 laps like Spinelli is right now, behind a lap car, that can then lead to you being jumped in pit lane. It doesn't take much.
And we have only got a 10-minute pit window. You can't afford to miss it. You can't afford to go right to the end, because if there's a problem and the pits get closed for a safety car, then it can spoil your plans. We are, what, 3.5 minutes away from the pit lane closing. So that is round about a lap really before you've got to come in. You don't want to be coming in at the last yawning moment. 26 minutes of the race still to go.
Okay, so the pit stops now. After the pit stops, number 1 car has actually come out ahead of the number 71. So already Jonathan Cecotto has moved past the... Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. He's come out exactly a lap behind.
Yes.
Exactly that bad, because the number 71 car has not yet stopped. My apologies for that one.
Correct. And now, in fact, the 71 car has, I think, just gone round him.
But if my math is correct, that's not a big enough gap.
Correct.
Because I think the total delta is something like 65 seconds or so.
That's the time from pit in to pit out that Brian is talking about. But that's a significant move there, as Spinelli has got by and put a full lap on the car that is one of the 71's biggest competitors. Now, the 71 hasn't stopped, as we're seeing, but that one car of Jonathan Cecotto, down now in 8th position, has made it stop. The leading car that has made it stop will pick up the next time around. Madison Snow has pitted. Piscopo has pitted. So Hardwick now second, then Damien Oakey in third, but they're better than half a minute down the road, or more than half a minute down the road from the leader. So the first, next time they come across the line, I will tell you the first car that has made its mandatory stop. I think it is going to be the number 1, because the Wayne Taylor guys were spot on their times. Yeah, I think it is. Corey Lewis now installed in the 29. So is that Corey there in the white car?
I believe it is.
So he has got out ahead of Cecotto. Now that's significant. The white car, as into the pit lane comes the number 10.
And it was
Randy
that traffic.
Celery? Yes.
For sure, it's that traffic
Absolutely.
that threw off the Prestige car. I mean, a couple seconds is all it takes, and you saw he got hung out in the keyhole, and it doesn't, it just creates enough of a gap for them to be able to jump him in pit lane. That's why the timing of it is so important.
So Corey Lewis, another driver that you know very well. It's a bit unfair them leaving you on the sidelines here to come and sit with Jeremy.
I feel like it's selfish.
Spinelli got to come in shortly, starting to get close to the end of the pit lane interval, pit window interval. Just on a couple of laps to go now.
That's right. He's turning very consistent laps to the front of the field. 1 minute
Here he comes.
22s.
Yeah, spot on.
And that was a really good in-lap, actually. A nice, clean lap, no traffic. So I think, with the gap he's established, you should see that car come back out in the lead, I believe.
So it's a 10-minute pit window, isn't it, Jeremy? So from 30 minutes to 20 minutes. So he's in with 3 minutes to spare. But the reason you don't go right to the end is just in case there's a problem, or you have a little half spin, because there's no leeway on that. When the pit window is closed, it's closed, and that's your race done. Spinelli already out of the 71 Lamborghini. The Broad dealer group supporting the P1 Motorsports car, and JC Perez will be jumping into that car. Now, the key thing now is them getting this pit stop done. The belt's done up. Don't sit on your belt when you get in. Don't get one twisted, because you cannot drive with a twisted lap belt. I have tried it once. I didn't even last till the second. As soon as I had to brake for the first corner, I realised there was something wrong and immediately had to come back in to the pit lane. It's not a nice thing to happen. So Damien Oakey will go through into the lead. He's pushing it right to the end of the pit lane window. The 71 is released. The teams do their own timing. That's not an official that's standing there. And it's from pit in to pit out, so you time the time that it takes you on the pit lane speed limiter, and then you add the seconds that it takes in the middle. And the 7 has spun. And that's Sheena Monk, who's gone to driver's right this time at turn 4. Back wheels are on the grass, and the Pirellis might have a little difficulty getting some grip there. She's watching the flag marshals, the corner workers on the far side of the track, to let them know. They will be letting her know when it's clear to go. I just think the V10 might have lost power there, and she might not be able to get it started. Now this could be really interesting. JC Perez out. Oki's got to get into the pit lane now in the 09 car, and he does. If there'd been a safety car there and he got caught out with the pit lane being closed, but what could happen here is if the safety car is called for, then he will get not a fully free pit stop, but half a free pit stop. So that might just fall for him here. Full course yellow, it's happened. The safety car's coming out, and Oakey did get into the pit lane before it happened, so it's not going to affect him. There's only 47 seconds left on the window. Now this is a massive break. They still have to time their pit stop, but of course everyone else will be slowing down.
Or should be slowing down at least.
Yeah, well, if at the moment...
We've seen rules being bent already, haven't we?
Oh, yes. The safety car, 71, JC Perez, did get out in the lead according to the timing and scoring, and have been asked to slow down. And here they come back onto the lead lap. Well, this is going to be interesting, because the car in the pit lane is sitting, waiting to go, and there it goes now. Now, where will it rejoin? 20 minutes to go.
7th place, I reckon.
Now, is the red light is on at the end of the pit lane?
Right.
Or is that the pit close light? No, that's the pit close light. Brian spotted that straight away, so he does filter out. The pits were closed for coming in, not for going out. I reckon he'll be allowed to take that position. What a great bit of tactics, though, by the 71 team, P1 Motorsports, sending their first driver long. And Loris Spinelli, I think, got just enough to get JC Perez back out in the lead. That is confirmed. Corey Lewis will be second. Piscopo will be third. Cicotto, Jonathan Cicotto, that #1 car, didn't get the best of that pit stop sequence because of the traffic that you were talking about earlier for Trent Hinman, and then when Jonathan came out.
Yeah, while we're under yellow, I think it's important. You touched on the pit lane time and that it's done by the teams. And when you said that, it made me think how difficult that actually is. People think that it's a very easy thing just to get the timing correct, but it is actually a very stressful moment for everybody in the teams because, you know, a second under, and here the penalty is basically double the time in the penalty, correct? So
yeah, it used to be a much bigger penalty, and now it's really not that much of a penalty at all. I mean, if you're a half a second too quick, you only lose a second, which is, you know, not exactly draconian.
No, not anymore. You're right, but I think it is one of those things where it is so easy to miss that. And that's one of those things where the team needs to get credit for what they do, because it is a lot more difficult than what everyone thinks.
18 minutes to go, and Sheena Monk's #7 LB Cup car from Wayne Taylor Racing, supported by the Paramus dealer group, is moving again with a little bit of help from our hard-working corner workers, to which each and every one of them, we say thank you very much indeed for giving up your time so that we can enjoy motor racing whichever side of the fence we are on. So this will not be a long yellow.
Interesting, during the yellows, the start-finish stand is no longer where it was at the beginning of the race.
Correct, good point.
So now it'll have a much different look, and it'd be interesting to see what the guys in the front do now that there's a quote-unquote AM in the car, and see if they have a shot at him.
How important is... Oh, we've lost a wheel on the one! Jonathan Cicotto, as he went through, no wonder the corner worker was looking at it. The diff on the car trying to put drive into the right-hand side. And the lock nut is gone there, so that isn't a failure necessarily. What an odd thing. It's not as if they've changed tyres during that pit stop. And a lot of people retalked that central nut and noticed the one team did not.
So a lot of times with these cars, the drive pins that you can see just there in the wheels, they start to ratchet. And so you'll see the guys torque them. And I would assume that they got those torqued, but who knows?
Yeah, the wheel falling behind the rest of the car as the #1 of Jonathan Cicotto went towards turn 1. The wheel helpfully stopping right by a marshal's post, so that'll be out of the way. Jonathan's car will need to be recovered, and that situation, remember this was a car in third before the pit stops, challenging for second, lost out a little bit on the pit stop exchange, and it's gone from that bad to sitting at the side of the road even worse, and that's going to be a non-finish for the #1 car. Heartbreak for Trent Hinman and for Jonathan Cicotto.
Yeah, the youngster had done a super job through the practice and qualifying.
I was looking forward to see him charging from fourth.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was a great battle. You hate to see it. You hate to see it in this way.
As a driver, Brian, you can't affect that. There's absolutely nothing you can do. You'll feel that happening, and I think Jonathan did, and he was already slowing down and moving across to driver's left. And you must just think, well, I don't know, what do you think? It's just not my day?
It's pretty gut-wrenching, especially in that position where you know you're fighting and you have a chance for a win. But, I mean, you look at it and say, what can you do? You know, there's like you said, there's nothing you can do from the driver's perspective, and I think you have to look at these situations and say, for sure, nobody did this intentionally. It's just unfortunate.
Jonathan Cecotto walks to the right-hand rear of the car to see what happened. He clearly knew he didn't have drive, and he's just realised the wheel wasn't there. He might not have seen it disappearing into the distance, and a massive shrug and arm gesture there, as much as to say, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, I don't remember people having that sort of difficulty before in this series.
I believe they have had in the past, but only places where they use the curbs substantially.
Right.
And so I think that there was maybe like VIR is an issue, Laguna Seca is potentially an issue.
Yeah.
And here you do use the curbs a lot, but normally it would be the left rear that is more aggressive on the curbs here than the right rear, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, plus when we saw Trent Hinman put a couple of wheels off at the exit of turn 9, didn't he? But again,
it was
that's
the
the left-hand
rear,
side
yeah.
of the car.
It's the right rear that's gone missing. Cecotto back with his car. Second generation driver, of course. Johnny Cecotto Sr., the youngest man to win a world motorcycle title. I remember him as I was growing up, one of my two-wheeled heroes, worked his way through a very good motorcycle career, and in fact probably, despite the fact he had a good motorcycle career, probably could have done better, was plagued by a little bit of unreliability and injury. Moved on into European Formula 2, and you saw him racing in Formula 2, Jeremy, the Cecotto Sr.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Drove a beautiful Formula 2 car.
Yeah, he started off with the March and then to the Maurer cars with the Minardi team, and yeah, very, very quick Formula car driver he became and raced in Formula 1, and now his oldest son, Johnny Jr., had a pretty good career going. He did a lot of 5 or 6 years in GP2, had success before that as well. I think he's now retired as a racing driver, but the 10 years younger is Jonathan, but he's clearly got a lot of talent as well.
Yeah. Trent speaks volumes of him.
Yeah,
says
yeah,
he's
really?
he says he's extremely talented.
Yeah.
Says that he can't believe how quick he can get in to a car at a track he's never been and go fast right away.
Yeah, this is not exactly an easy track to go fast on the first time,
it's
is it?
not. It's not at all. I think it takes a lot of people a lot of time.
The thing about this track is it doesn't look that easy just looking at the track map, but the track map doesn't tell you about the rise and the fall and the odd little camber changes in the middle or to the exit of corners, where if you're a car's width offline, the camber stops helping you and starts pushing you straight off the circuit. And those little nuances you normally can only learn about by doing lots of laps around here.
And that's the only thing. I think this is one of the places where no matter how much sim work you do, no matter how much video you watch, you cannot prepare for being here, because like you said, you don't actually get the off cambers, the feel for where the bumps are, for where the sealer patches are, where the track grips, where it doesn't, and where to place the car. And
how much has the track changed? You won here in the rain in the ALMS days with Wolf Hensler, and how much has this track changed then since some of the concrete infill has been changed by this new high density asphalt that they use here, and the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, something very similar there. Has that changed the nature of some of the deceleration, turning and acceleration zones?
I would like to say yes, but likely no. I mean, the biggest thing it's done is allow the track to stay intact. The one thing you do notice, and we're looking at it right now, is the rubber builds substantially in those portions. You can see the dark black rubber marks on this patch here. Those rubber up a lot. And so what you'll see is the drivers try to drive into those and use those high grip portions to put the majority of the power down, because those are the areas where you do the least damage to the tire, yet you get the most gain. And that will change over the course of the weekend. And that's what I was saying earlier. These guys haven't driven on the track like this, and now they are. So learning these things as the course of the race goes on is very important.
And a full day's track action means also we've had the sweepers out, but there will be tyre debris offline. The drivers call them marbles because they're little rolled up pieces of rubber, and offline there they get onto the hot sticky tyres, and when that happens sometimes it feels like you have a puncture or you've lost a balance weight. It can be so bad, the vibration there, Brian.
And that's right. When you're under a long yellow like this and the tires are extremely hot and a lot of rubber has been pulled off, and you see the 79 is in.
That's Jonathan Tummerton coming into the pit lane now. They've made their mandatory pit stop, and it looks like they are going for a tyre change, so maybe they've got a tyre alarm here. giving it a shake. I wonder if that's what's happened for him. He's got offline and picked up a bit of a vibration, and they're checking to make sure he doesn't have a puncture.
It's extremely possible. I'd be surprised if someone of his caliber didn't know that was pickup. I would suspect that there's a problem, but it does happen. I mean, you come with hot tires, you run offline just a little bit, and you see the mechanic giving the no-go on something, maybe a wheel bearing or...
Yeah, something loose apparently on that right rear corner would be the apparent indication there.
Car has come down off the jack. Built-in air jacks on these Huracan Super Trofeo Evo cars. And, well, was that a no, it's fine, let's sell him, or no, he's not going anywhere for Jonathan Summerton in the P1 Motorsports, supported by Atlanta Lamborghini.
That's certainly a shame for Jonathan Summerton, trying to make a bit of a comeback. He's been out of racing for quite a long time. Did the occasional race over the last few years, but really very little. He's now 30 years of age, which is fairly remarkable.
Yeah, that car's stuck in gear, Jeremy, and doesn't want to restart. By the way, what we were robbed of Jonathan Cicotto is, as Jonathan Summerton is starting, he has stayed on the lead lap, by the way, so he should be all right. Is a new fastest lap he was about to have before things went very wrong before the full course caution and that wheel came off. So that charge back from 4th position was very much on in that #1 Lamborghini Huracan from Wayne Taylor Racing. So that's what that wheel taking flight and making its bid for freedom, that's what that's robbed us of in the last half of the race. But JC Perez will come back to the green flag after this full course caution. He'll have Corey Lewis in the 29, Taylor Proto in the 50, Brandon Godovic in the 46, and Damien Oakey in the 09, right up his tailpipes. Jonathan Summerton is now at the back of the pack, but still, I think he's still on the lead lap. Yeah, I'm going to say he is, but he'll have traffic to work through to get back to those leaders. Corey Lewis will want to be right underneath the rear diffuser. It's going to be at least one more lap, I think, as the #1 Lamborghini is getting back on the track. The tow truck actually bogged down for a moment in the wet grass and needing to be helped out by one of the GMC IMSA safety trucks. Nice use of the tow strop there. Didn't look like it was terribly stuck, just getting a little bit of momentum to get going.
And we're going to be down to about 5.5 minutes remaining by the time we get back to green, assuming they can get this car off the track and go back to green this time around.
And I think to touch on what you were saying before Summerton came in the pits, you can see right now a lot of acceleration and deceleration coming from the front cars, and that's a surefire sign that they have started to pick up some marbles. They're doing everything they can to keep temperature in the tire, but keep them clean. And so you'll see and hear a lot of these big accelerations and decelerations, just so when they go green, the balance of the car is reasonable. What happens when those marbles build up and you enter turn 1 is you lose all grip. So you can feel like you have the punctures like you talked about, or something's happened, you get massive oversteer or massive understeer, and it's easy to give up a position in those situations.
The lights are out on the Roger Dubois Huracan safety car in the classic Lamborghini white. All right, hands up who had the Lamborghini Countach in white with the white wheels on the plain background as an A1 poster during their teenage years. We're of almost different generations, Brian, and it was
Jeremy's the only one that didn't.
Shea Adams put her hand up in the back of the IMSA safety, IMSA broadcast centre as well. And it was an absolute classic for probably somewhere over a decade. Marcello Gandini designed, a man who never knowingly put a curve where it wasn't needed, where he could have a straight line instead. But an absolute genius for the old Countach. And the new Lamborghinis, very much evocative of that design. Even the new SUV, which is here this weekend, and looks all over, bumper to bumper, like a Lamborghini, and has the performance to match. Safety car in the pit lane. Green flag in the air. 5.5 minutes to go, and we're racing, and immediately JC Perez is under pressure from Corey Lewis. Taylor Proto caught napping just a little bit down to turn one, the 2 leaders. That's not the place to go, Corey, but he might be able to just pull the car to the left-hand side. He's cost himself second position here.
He's cost momentum, that's for sure. And Taylor Proto, I should say, is going to look around the outside into turn 2.
And this is going to allow JC Perez to get a bit of a lead, but he's outbraked himself, but he'll pull that back to the right-hand side. Not the worst thing to do there, as we saw from Madison Snow. Second and third are battling here. The white car on driver's left is Corey Lewis, and he's going to have to defend all the way down the hill. He gets to the apex, but he's costing himself momentum. Every time he turns the wheel, every time he moves the car, he costs himself a mile an hour or a half a mile an hour. He's so late on the brakes, though, down into 4. Lewis did a good job there. I thought he was toast there, Brian, when he went for the move at turn 1. It's taken him half a lap to re-establish himself in second place, but he has done that now.
Such a good job. I mean, your heart's beating fast in that situation. Corey knows that at this stage in the race, 5 minutes left, it's do or die. He tried the position, cost him some time, and almost gave away the position, but he did a phenomenal job of keeping him behind him. I mean, it's just a really, really tough situation to be in.
And now he gets to have another crack at the leader. JC Perez just struggling with his braking points here a little bit, whilst he's waiting for the Pirellis to come back up to temperature and pressure. Comes across the start-finish line. 4 minutes and 8 seconds to go.
Now, Corey should look for the keyhole here. Turn 1 should not even be an option. Try and set it up, get a good run. Looks like he's done that now.
But now Perez has got to stay driver's right. If he opens the door on the inside, he's going to have 1, 2, possibly 3 Lambos going down it. He pulls across to the racing line. The nose dives for the tarmac. Round the outside by Taylor Proto in the blue Lamborghini. This is going to be side by side coming out of the keyhole. And look at the car behind Brandon Godovic.
That's right. I was going to say, watch out for car number 46, Brandon Godovic, because he's right there now as the 2 second and third place cars go absolutely side by side. It's been a really good restart by JC Perez. Doesn't have anything like the experience of Corey Lewis in second place as a former world champion in these cars. And Taylor Proto is in just his second year of racing, but around the outside of Proto goes Brandon Godovic up into third place.
Great move.
Oh, the lead, and he's touched him. Corey's touched the left front to right rear, and that is a tap. And there's a puncture on the right rear.
Yep.
Oh, and that's going to get I'm afraid that's going to cause all kinds of problems, and it will, I think, get a penalty as well. And he braked and gets turned around at turn 9, and this is disaster for Perez, who'd done so well.
Brilliant. And
Corey Lewis has...
Very impressive, that was.
I'm afraid ruined that race with that little tap. Went for the inside at turn 6. And Lewis, I'm sure, will get a penalty for that.
I mean, Corey Lewis had the pace.
Yes.
There was no need to do anything silly like that.
Particularly not there. We'll leave Brian out of this conversation.
It's such a hard thing. I mean, right now, Corey's looking and seeing the pressure from behind.
Yeah.
Full course yellow, and this will end under full course yellow. The positions will be frozen, and the man I think who's going to win this is Brandon Godovic. We said watch out for him. He's made the bold move on Taylor Proto when they were coming through Madness and down into the S's. The door was open, but he's not there. He's not quite there. He's not even halfway up the side of the leader.
He tried to pinch you down and got on the curbs. As soon as he came off the curbs, he's going to hit the car in front, which is exactly what happened. And
Perez trying to stay out the way, but the back of the car is all over the place. And then coming through, Brandon Godovic.
I think he got a help there also.
He was on the brakes, in fairness, coming over 9, but I'm not surprised because the car would have been moving around all over the place, and all he wants to do is stay out of the way. And he got a nudge into the wall, and I'm afraid the day is over early for the 71, and the P1 Motorsports Broworth car is in the wall on the exit of 9, and that's all she wrote.
I think we got to go back real quick, though, and talk about that move that Brandon did, because in all the excitement, it's so easy to miss that move, and he drove around the outside of turn 5, and it's just so impressive. That is a difficult move to make.
Yeah, and it was definitely a touch from Taylor Proto that turned around JC Perez just over the brow of turn 9. And the damage to the right rear clear to see on the 71 car, and it was the left rear that's gone into the wall. So that is it was the lightest of touches, Jeremy, but that's enough to puncture a tyre or break a wheel.
Yeah, well, it was fairly stout, I think, as he came off the curb and sort of cannoned into the side. I mean, he tried to get out of it, but it was a move that wasn't really on because, yeah, the door was probably cracked open a little bit by Perez, but he stuffed it down the inside. We are going to finish under caution. But Brandon Godovic, he's had a pair of second-place finishes before in this championship. He has won the AM category in the World Championship in 2015, so quite a lot of experience in these cars for the former stock car racer. But he's here. He was going for that first win. He really wants that first win.
He set that up at turn 4, Brian, in the 46, the black and red Lamborghini. He set that up from turn 4 from a very long way back. He also managed to avoid JC Perez as well, and he checked up. He didn't hit the back of the car. He did a very good job there, and if he is promoted to the win, I think he deserves that just for that audacious maneuver at 4, 5 and 6.
I have to say, I think Jeremy's going to disagree with me on this one, and that's okay. But I think Race Control may have a hard time issuing a penalty for the move there. While it's clear that there was contact, I think that
it wasn't deliberate.
It wasn't deliberate.
Right. You're absolutely right, Brian.
That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be something, but I do think that Corey did everything he could to get over the curb, and I think, you know, okay, could Perez have given him a little bit more room? Possibly, but it's terrible regardless of how you look at it.
I completely agree. I wouldn't expect to see a penalty there.
Really?
No, not really. It wasn't. It was nothing deliberate. It was. As Brian says, the door was definitely open, but with somebody of his experience, I think it was a sort of mistake the driver with that experience shouldn't make.
Checkered flag then under full course yellow, and round 1, race 1 of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo for 2018 is complete. Corey Lewis crosses the line in the 29 Lamborghini of Charlotte Huracan, which was started by Madison Snow. Great run by those guys. Madison Snow doing a fantastic job to hold off Trent Hinman early on and hold on to what was then second position. They've converted it into the victory as they go across the line. Second place, Brandon Godovic took over the 46 car from Shinji Mishimi, who did a very good first sector of the session of the race. But Brandon, very racy indeed. Good pit stop for that team as well, which bumped them up the order, and they will come through in second overall and in pro. And what about third, the 5-0 car? That was Eduardo Piscopo, who kept the US Racetronics Beverly Hills Lamborghini in the hunt all the way through, and Taylor Proto right there at the end will take the third step of the podium. In Pro-Am, it's the 47 ppm Palm Beach Lamborghini who will come home and take the victory.
Yeah, and that's Patrick Liddy who drove that second stint of the car, taken over from Dylan Murcott. So he will take the Pro-Am victory with that problem, with the incident there for JC Perez on the final lap. And it was a good effort there by Patrick Liddy, his first ever start in this series. And it was a very late entry, but he's done a good job all weekend long, and he's going to come away with a Pro-Am win.
In the AM category, the 09 is the car that takes it. Damon Oakey for US Racetronics, making it another good day for them. That car helped out by the Calgary Lamborghini dealerships. In LB Cup, the number 88 Mark Proto and Paris Mullins makes it a pretty good day for the Protos. Father and son on the podium and a winner. That'll do. Thank you very much indeed. So, Brian, thanks very much. It's not quite as exciting here in the broadcast centre as it is out there in the track, but have you enjoyed being with us?
Yeah, I don't know. My heart skipped a beat a couple of times during the race, especially at the end there, and everyone's jumping around and holding my breath. I think it might be easier to be in the race car, but it was a pleasure being up here with you guys.
Well, let's hope to see you sometime throughout the rest of the season. Best to the guys at Paul Miller Racing for the WeatherTech Championship race tomorrow. Leading the championship, is you go into that a little bit of extra pressure for you?
No. I mean, we're still so early into this race that, you know, it's anyone's championship.
Good luck for that, and come and join us through the rest of the season as we continue with our coverage of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series. And the next race is tomorrow here at Mid-Ohio. For Jeremy Shaw, Brian Sellers, I'm John Hindhaugh. Bye-bye for now.